Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dr. Arnold Nerenberg. I've been licensed to practice clinical psychology in the state of California since 1974. And I've been licensed to walk upon this earth officially since 1941. So I'm over 82 years of age. And it's my pleasure, my privilege, my joy to be in your presence, to have the opportunity to speak with you and share with you insights and lessons and inspirations of a lifetime. The title of today's presentation is Your Problems Are Not As Big As They Seem. Your problems are not as big as they seem. Our problems are not as big as they seem. Firstly, let me say, I don't mean to diminish the size of the problem. There's some really horrible problems that you went through, I've been through, we all go through. So I'm not meaning to diminish it and say, oh, it shouldn't bother you. I'm not saying that. Now, at that moment, we forget that we can see, we can hear, we're in good health, our children are in good health, our loved ones are in good health, if that's the case. We lose sight of the fact that losing the job might be the best thing that could happen to us. I've had this conversation so many times. I'll give you an example of that. I remember Jimmy. He was the head of security at a major industry, and he loved the job. He loved the people. He was shown so much respect. At the time of Christmas, Jimmy would get a carload of gifts because everybody loved Jimmy. Well, so he was a supervisor, and this was at a major movie studio, and so some of the subordinates had one of the actresses naked, and everyone was sort of naked pictures that her ex-boyfriend sent. Well, he saw them looking at it. He didn't say anything, he just walked away. Well, management found out that he didn't stop it when he wasn't looking at the picture, but he didn't stop the subordinates from looking at it. They said, you saw this. And I might also say that he had about 60 days to retire after 30 years. They called him to the office, they let him go. Loss of income, lost retirement, loss of health insurance. And he said to me, Doc, what was also awful, I lost all that respect. It was my life. I loved the people, they loved me, it was beautiful. So his whole universe, and I said to him, basically, it's not as big a problem as you think. What do you mean? I lost all that. I said, I understand that. I said, that's huge. But what if I told you that within a month, you're going to tell me it was the best thing that ever happened to you? He actually laughed. Jimmy laughed. He said, you expect me to say to you that losing my job was the best thing that ever happened to me? I said, yeah, within a month. And he was like flabbergasted that I was saying this. He walked out from that session. The third week I saw him. I said, Dr. Nerenberg, I can't believe I'm going to say this to you. I really can't believe it. Losing my job was the best thing that ever happened to me. There you go. It didn't take a month. It was 3 weeks. He said this. He said, my wife and I have always had a good marriage. Here's what happened. She said, my wife came home one day from work. I've been cleaning the house and making dinner. She said, don't think I don't see how you're making dinner and cleaning the house and all the wonderful things you're doing for me and the love you show me. She said, I love you more than ever. I love you more than I have over all the years we've been married. He said, Doc, all the years I worked getting up 5 in the morning, working long, hard hours, I never heard that from my wife. He said, Doc, to hear that from my wife and to see the look on her face, losing my job was the best thing that could have happened to me. So there are a number of ways to keep their perspective in the midst of tribulation, where they're not bigger than they seem. They're big, but they're not bigger than they seem. So you have what I call the 4 commandments of honor. One of the commandments of honor I call the warrior's commandment of honor is, I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. And the derivative of that is, what's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem? what's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem? So when you're in it, you can look for the best true story. When you go for the best true story, we don't try to diminish the loss, losing his job, his health benefits, insurance, the respect that he had was huge. But that's not the full story. The rest of the story was he had a closer, more beautiful relationship with his wife, who was really more important than all that to him. So one of the ways is to be repeating to yourself, what's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem? That way, when you're in it, you're not going to be totally consumed. Oh, the whole universe is this catastrophe. And the catastrophe was awful. This trial and tribulation is awful. What's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem? The other one, another derivative of the warrior's commandment of honor is this. I hope to come back much stronger than ever. I hope to come back much stronger than ever. So right in the middle of it. Now you know it's true. You're going to gain power from your hardship. You're going to come back stronger than ever. And there's the best true story about this because you've been through trials and tribulations. And as you look back on it, you can see, wow, I went through all that. Made me a better person, made me a more compassionate person, gave me more wisdom. As a matter of fact, you can't achieve wisdom. You cannot achieve wisdom without suffering. You cannot achieve true compassion for other people without suffering. So right off the bat, when you're going through a real trial and tribulation, which we all do, we have in the past, many at this time now, and then of course again in the future, it's going to make us stronger, wiser, more compassionate. And you've seen how you've gained greater perspective and wisdom from what you've gone through. That's why wiser people can become even wiser because they've suffered more in life. They have that opportunity to become even wiser. Grateful for the power gained from hardship. The two derivatives. I hope to go back much stronger than ever. And what's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem? The key is, and this is the secret of what I want to tell you, because I really care about you, my beloved patients, my beloved students. You have to tell yourself these things when you're in it, when you're totally engulfed in darkness. That's when you have to tell yourself these things, and you won't be able to do it unless you're repeating this 3 times a day. I'm grateful for the power I gained from hardship. Hope to come back much stronger than ever. And what's the best true story I can tell myself about this problem? You've got to keep those going. We have the commandments of honor. And I'm going to go with you too, because this is the way of honor. The way of honor gives perspective. You're not going to be overreacting as much. You're not going to be consumed nearly as much. You're going to be more resilient. You're going to come back with more wisdom and compassion. That's definitely what's going to happen for you when you walk the way of honor. Now, you can be really angry at somebody. That's another one that will consume you. You're going to overreact. A person said something, and you go, that person said this. I like to tell him off. I like to slap him. It's not the first time. You're lost. And your whole universe is, this guy could be your supervisor, could be a friend, a spouse, a partner, offended you, and you felt hurt and humiliated. And that's your whole universe. But the problem is not as big as it seems. One of the commandments of honor is, I wish you well. I wish you well. So you're in that, consumed in that negativity. And by the way, it's not your fault that you're having those negative thoughts. Not at all. Based on your genetics, family upbringing, societal norms. You're not responsible. Don't feel guilty about it. You are responsible, now that you have this knowledge, for balancing it with the thoughts such as, I wish you well. I wish you well, one of the commandments of honor. I wish you well. Now, you don't fight the negativity. You let it be, and you just balance it. I wish you well. Now, when you go, I wish you well, that negative feeling doesn't magically vanish. It doesn't. Why? Because the negative thought, that angry thought, is far more powerful in the moment than I wish you well. But when you're doing that, what happens is that negative thinking, those kind of angers, will come back less often, with less duration and less intensity. You're going to get them less often. You're going to enter into a more peaceful life. You're not going to overact as much. Your problems are not going to seem bigger than they are. They're not going to seem bigger than they are, because you're not going to lose perspective as much. I wish you well. Another one of the commandments of honor is I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. So you're getting upset with somebody. I just want to tell them off. I want to slap them. You know what? I just can't totally blame him. I co-created this. I did X on Y, Z. I could see how I was part of it. Mostly his fault, but you know what? I helped to co-create it. Not to feel guilty about it, just it'll give you perspective. Because the blaming, to the extent you get caught in that blaming, you're going to be overreacting. You won't see anything outside of the victim, being the victim. To some extent, people become victimized. There is such a thing as a true victim. Very rare. 99.9% of the time we co-create it. Somebody's walking down the street, somebody shoots them. Drive-by shooting. That's a victim. Most of us, 99.9% of the time, we're co-creating the problem. And if you're really honest about it and look at it, you'll see it. Now, the interesting thing is most people can't do that. Most people can't say, well, I've co-created this. I'm sorry for my part. This is a magic formula for having a better relationship, a better marriage, a better relationship with your significant other. Hey, I co-created this. I did X, Y, and Z. I apologize for my part of that. That will take you out of that tunnel vision, because that's what we go, that tunnel. The whole universe is that person dared to say that to me. There's a lot more to your life than that. But in those moments, that's the whole world. So your problems are not as big as they seem. Also, when you're going into these problems, you then start recognizing them as opportunities to manifest honor in your life. So the 4 commandments of honor are these. I wish you well. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. Grateful for the power I gain from hardship. And then one of 2, whether they believe in God or not, as I do. If you believe in God, it's God. Your wish is my only wish. If you don't want to address God or don't believe, it's I seek always to serve my highest values. So another one you'll be using, you're in a situation, you want to say something really nasty to that person, which is only natural that you want to do that because they hurt you so much or humiliated you. You're going, God, your wish is my only wish. All religions believe do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. You know that it's not something God would want you to do. So you have all these ways of reframing your life. Reframing so you're not overreacting, so you're able to keep perspective. Well, now, to be able to really implement the commandments of honor, you need then the bridge, which is what's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? What's the most honorable thing to think, say, and do? See, when you're doing the commandments of honor, you're doing the bridge, that repetition is preparation for application to achieve internalization and stabilization. It will help stabilize you. That's the good news. You'll be more resilient. You'll be more stabilized. Now, you want to make a lifetime commitment to repeating the 4 commandments 3 times a day for the rest of your life. By the way, the 4 commandments of honor take 8 seconds to repeat. I mean, you could be driving, watching TV, changing a diaper, washing your face. You could be saying it. You mean in the shower, whatever. And then the bridge is another 4 seconds. That's 12 seconds, 36 seconds a day, and you got it. That's the repetition you need to achieve the preparation for the application, to achieve internalization and stabilization. You want to make a lifetime commitment. So a lot of people take a pledge to become the disciples of honor. It goes this way. As a disciple of honor, I pledge myself for all the days of my life to the 4 commandments of honor. And I'll teach them to those I love. I'll repeat them every morning, afternoon, and evening, and I'll listen to myself recite them. Those of you who want to go to, that'll take you the full distance. 4 commandments of honor, the bridge, the 2 derivatives that I've told you about. If you want to go even further to really solidify it more, you can become a devotee of honor, where you repeat the Supremacy of Honor code at least once a day. The Supremacy of Honor code is honor before pride, because it's pride that's often offended and will take you into loss of perspective. Honor before pride, honor before anger, honor before sex, honor before money, honor before fear, honor before everything, honor before life itself. Do that at least once a day. The pledge to be a devotee of honor is, as a devotee of honor, I pledge myself for all the days of my life to the Supremacy of Honor code, and I'll bring it to the world for a more just society. The disciples of honor will bring it to ourselves and our loved ones. The devotee of honor is going further, bringing it not only to ourselves and loved ones, but to the world as a movement, a social movement, the honor movement. All of that will ground you in the way of honor, ground you in a commitment to the most constructive way of thinking, speaking, and behaving. The most constructive way of thinking, speaking, and behaving. That's where it'll take you. Your problems are not as big as they seem. So at this point, we have many of our wonderful, wonderful people here. And actually, when they ask questions and make comments, I find out from so many people that they benefit as much or even more from your comments than they do from the presentation, because people feel less alone and part of a community when they hear the others speak. Very important. I'm going to open it up. Who would like to ask a question, make a comment? Your problems are not as big as they seem.
I have one comment. This is Joanne.
Joanne, yes.
Yes, how are you?
Good
Yes.
to see you.
Thank you. Absolutely the case when it comes to the message that we tell ourselves, because that colors our reality, our perspective, our outlook on life. And if you just think for just a moment how when you tell yourself something positive, how good you feel, you can actually transform that into another situation where it's negative and give yourself a positive message. So it's really how we interpret what we see in life and what we tell our inner self.
Well,
really
I'm so glad you said that, Joe. I'm so glad. Thank you. Most people tell themselves the worst possible story, worst true story about their situation. The worst true story. So it's not a fiction, but it's the worst story. So this one, we're talking positive, telling yourself the best true story about it. And the way to remember to do it is, what's the best true story I can tell myself about this situation? That's exactly right. That's positive self-talk. It reframes it. It doesn't make the negativity go away. It doesn't make the problem go away, but it enlarges your perspective. Absolutely. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you. I'd like to hear from others to help each other. I'm sure that's going to help everybody, Joanne. Others with any comments or questions, just unmute yourselves.
Doctor, this is Talene.
Talene, good to see you, Talene.
Good seeing you. And also, I think sometimes when bad things happen or things that you think are just really affect your life in a negative way, but after a while, it turns out that it was the best thing that happened to you.
Well, you know what? And that's so true. And that's what I want people to remember while it's happening. This could lead to something very good. All things work for good for those who seek the good. Talene, that's totally right. But the thing is to think of that while you're in it.
Yeah. It's really hard. It's not easy.
That's why you have to train yourself doing this 3 times a day. Otherwise, you can't do it.
Easy. But then you look back and you say, I am so glad that happened, because this and this and this I might not have been able to do if it had not happened. So it's everything has a way of working out, I believe, in a greater scheme of things. That's the way I feel.
Well, let me tell you our case history. Thank you so much for that, Talene. You inspired me to tell you this. My daughter very successful academically, went to UC Berkeley, graduated high honors, got into one of the top law schools, George Washington University. I graduated that law school. Came out to California, never failed anything in her life. She took the bar in California. She failed. Oh, what a blow that was. She failed it. I said, well, that's good for you. You need some failure in life. We all need that. It's good for you. Well, if you fail it twice, you lose your job. She had a very prestigious job, Department of Justice up in Sacramento. But if you fail it twice, you have to leave. So next time she really studied, her score went up. She failed the second time. And just about everybody else in her department passed it on that same. She was the only one in the department. And this is a brilliant student. Failed the second time. I said, well, that's another good thing. You need these failures. Believe me. So she lost the job. And then I talked to her. It turns out it was a prestigious job, but she really was not excited by it. It was kind of boring. And also she really wanted to be with us in SoCal. She can be with your parents. You can learn some humility. It's good for you. And so she studied the third time, and she took the exam. They have to wait, I don't know, 3 or 4 months to get the results. She says, Dad, that was my best shot. I say, no, it was. I said, but, and she says, if I don't pass it this time, I'm going to have to move to another state, because that second score she's had would have got her past the bar in any other state but California. She would have passed even in New York at that score. So I said, well, I'm 98% positive you pass this time. I'm pretty good at calling those things. Well, we just a few weeks ago, the scores came in. She was two, whether you passed or failed. She wanted me to open. She didn't want to open, so I pressed it. You passed. It was such a relief. She wept. Wow. I think I wept a little bit. It was such a big relief.
Yeah.
So for her, it was like confirmation. She's supposed to be in SoCal with her parents and the advice. You know, and so she has a job that she likes a lot better now with the Legal Aid's, very, very important nonprofit organization trying to help people who are being evicted to delay their evictions. So she loves the people here. She likes the job. It's prestigious, but not as prestigious as the previous job, but a lot more interesting. And she's in SoCal where really she wanted to be. So what I saw all along was she needed failure in her life. She absolutely had to get some failure. I've had plenty of failures in my life, and good came out of all of them. And I gave a lecture called the Power of Failure. And I would say I'm a very successful person, but my achievement, all the success I have, the path to success I've had was paved with failures. Failure after failure in all areas of life, financial, emotional, relationship, professional, you name it. I've got a failure there. Took me to great heights. And I've talked about those failures so many times. So the failures, I've kept to understand the nature of those failures. Of course, she can't give up. I said, people say, oh, you must be very proud she passed. I said, well, I'm relieved that she passed. I'm proud that she stayed with it 3 times. I'm relieved that she passed, but I'm proud that she didn't give up. I was proud of her character. So that's a real life example that just recently happened in our family. So I want to open it up for anybody else who wants to make any comments or questions.
Yeah, Doc, thanks for your time. I was just reflecting mentally on, like you were speaking of the loss of perspective. And, I was just running a tape through my mind of how many times throughout my life, I perceived something to be one way, and a week later, 10 days later, it's like, hey, wait a minute, that wasn't such a big deal. And now with the commandments, I think it's kind of easier to flow into it not being a big deal while it's happening, and that's, I know it's a part of my personality where a lot of things were a big deal, where it turns out that not so much, just maintain a perspective of just taking full responsibility for whatever's going on.
Well, I'm very proud of you, Ivan. I think so highly of you. And the fact that you're able to do it while you're in the midst of it, not just looking back and say, wow, that worked for the best in the midst of it. That's the key to this whole path of honor. Is to be able
But
to
that's
see
only come about in the last 6 months, dealing with the commandments of honor and having that stability, so to speak, with just being more conscious and aware. You know, I think it's made me much more aware.
You know, it truly is repetition is preparation for application to achieve internalization and stabilization. You know, call them commandments of honor because those commandments already, those ideas already exist within you. When you're repeating the commandments of honor, you're just calling on the way of honor to rise into consciousness and thoughts, words, and actions. I never had to twist anybody's arm into believing these. Everybody already believed it. It's not like a command from out here. I command you. No, it's not. It's like you already have that. When you're saying them, you're commanding it to rise up in yourself. I just, by repeating it, you're putting a light on it so it illumines your own heart for that to rise up.
Yeah, and I think it kind of it keeps you front and center of whatever's going on. You know, so that's what I really appreciate about your teachings.
Yeah. But yeah, Joanne, thank you, Ivan, so much.
And another comment I wanted to make, I guess because I'm more involved in social services, is that it's very important for you not to isolate yourself, even though you may not be able to have that perspective and be strong enough when you're going through whatever you're going through. It's so important to be around a good support system, whether it be family, friends, or just someone else that can offer you a different perspective. And oftentimes it'll be a lot more positive and it'll give you hope to carry on. It's very important that you don't isolate yourself and that you do stay engaged and that you do cite those commandments and internalize them.
Joanne, let me tell you something. When we have a support network, let's say somebody's going through a terrible thing in a relationship. I've seen it so many times. I'm thinking right now of women who are divorcing their husband. They'll get together with other women and justify that you should divorce the son of God. He's no good. He's this, he's that. He did what? You should get rid of him. Usually the friends, often, not always, will confirm a bad story about what, especially if it's a relationship problem. They'll confirm it. But really, so I would say your support system, you want to, and people don't do this, going to people with good marriages and say, look, I'm having this terrible problem. I'm even thinking about divorce. And then talk to somebody who has a successful marriage, and they can help give you another perspective. But a lot of people's friends are going to they're going to give them a bad story, their bad story.
Can, that's for sure.
So you need to have friends who are successful and keep positive in that realm.
Right.
But people very often are looking to confirm their own negative belief. Mm-hmm. They want confirmation.
They're clear of them. Yeah.
But that's true if you turn to the right counsel for it.
Exactly. I'm speaking of people that are very supportive, you know.
Yeah, so, I'm saying people are supportive by saying, yeah, you have every right to do what you're doing to that person. Yeah, that they think that's being supportive. Believe me.
Yeah. Oh, I understand. I know the types.
Yeah, I mean, it's more common than not. So being able to discern who's going to help give you a wider perspective, a more constructive perspective, that's key in doing it.
Absolutely.
So but what you're saying is so good, Joanne. Thank you. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure to be with you. On the topic, your problems are not as big as they seem.
The sea of destiny is in your deepest struggle. God's will and mine be one, and I wish you well. You are co-creator, respectfully real. There's a way in the valley that turns weakness to steel. We're known through all eternity. From strife we gain power, clothed in grace and love, disciples of honor. All the days of our lives refuse the way of shame. We wish nobody harm, have no one to blame. Your high calling will be done, and pure eyes now glow. In darkness craves the good, like waters from the desert flow. I pledge my love all the days of my life. I pledge my soul to all that is good. I pledge my heart to my brothers and sisters who I join in the light, leave a legacy of honor. We're known through all eternity. From strife we gain power, clothed in grace and love, disciples of honor. All the days of our lives refuse the way of shame. We wish nobody harm, have no one to blame. Your high calling will be done, and pure eyes now glow. In darkness crave the good, like waters from the desert flow.